I'm delighted to be able to speak to Dave Nixon, my Can Do FM colleague. We haven't spoke for a couple of weeks, Dave. How are you doing?
All right, Tony, but as I've just said to you, I've got a Beckham boot on now because I've got a damaged foot, so I'm sort of housebound, really. Can't drive, but TV, only thing is there's not a lot of sport on, is there? But I'm all right.
So, sorry, Dave, so how did you do that with the foot? Tell a listener.
I've just damaged it. I actually did it in bed. I think I got my foot tangled in the sheet, ripped my foot back, and I am type 2 diabetic, and I've damaged the foot in some way. I'm going for an MRI scan in a week or so, but the podiatrists have put me in a Beckham boot, and I've got what they think I've got what is called a Charcot joint, where the arch of your foot inverts. So it can be quite a serious thing if they don't catch it early enough. So hopefully they have.
Oh dear. Well, let's hope that you're on the mend very quickly, Dave. So obviously you're chairman of Barrow Angling Association, Dave, and we spoke about fishing being on, and then it was off, and then it was back on again. So since we last spoke, has there been any changes to the fishing rules or anything? And what's the impact been around the Furness area?
Well, there's been no changes to the rules. People can still go fishing. They've got to socially distance. I think the most important part of the socially distancing advice is in the car parks or wherever people are parking up to go fishing. They shouldn't be getting too close to their fellow anglers. I've been out and about before I got the Beckham boot on, and there's plenty of people out fishing. I go out checking water levels for a couple of reservoirs that Barrow own, and there's been plenty of people fishing there, even in the freezing cold. I've rolled up all wrapped up like a Michelin man, and there's guys there fishing, and there's ice on so wow. They're pretty keen. But there's plenty of fish being caught, I'm told. Everybody seems to be keeping well. Other than that, things are pretty much the same.
So when you say fish are being caught, Dave, what are we talking about here? Trout and stuff?
Trout, yeah. Trout, and I've no doubt on the coarse fishing waters that the pike will be being active, and the lads that like catching pike will be out fishing. Cold weather's good for pike fishing, and they're pretty active at this time of year, putting on a bit of weight, ready for spawning, because the pike spawn around end of March into April. So they're pretty active, looking for small fish to eat.
Yeah, but we humans don't tend to eat pike, do we?
Eastern Europeans do. And we used to in days gone by. And they're not a bad fish to eat. There's the only thing I would say is, I mean, I used to eat them when I was a child, when we used to go over to Ireland, to the west of Ireland in the late 50s, early 60s. If you eat the jack pikes, which are up to about £5, and they've got a white flesh, they're quite tasty, a little bony, but not as bad as a perch, which tastes very nice but is very bony. But if you start eating bigger pike, which nobody would advocate now, they're very fit because they eat a lot of fish themselves. They taste very fishy, but pike anglers don't eat them. And no. We Western Europeans don't really eat pike, but Eastern Europeans, there is a tradition of eating coarse fish, but not so much in England.
Right, Dave. So your other capacity as a chairman is the chairman of the Barrow Raiders community sort of association, and all the work that Shona Hartley and Dennis Fay do, who we had on the programme a couple of months ago, advising us of the great community work that they do within the town. So What's the latest on that, Dave? Has there been any big movements in terms of applying for any grants or anything?
Well, we've applied for charitable status to become a charity, which will help with donations from various organisations that have it within their instruments and articles of governance that they only donate to charities. So that will help the foundation access some money that they couldn't previously access. As far as other activities go, we've had a little bit of disruption because the treasurer had to resign because of his business interests and COVID and homeschooling. So we've had to change that. We've had to change the secretary, and Terry Barker's come on board, the secretary of the Barrow and District Rugby League Association. So there's been a little bit of a reshuffle there. Shauna, I spoke to last week, and she's been doing a lot of work during COVID to keep the groups that she set up, the community groups, like aerobic exercise and stuff like that. Instead of doing it down at the Raiders ground or in a gym, they're doing it by Zoom. So she's running quite a few Zoom sessions. COVID's been a bit of a pain, really, because people can't get together. And the community is all about groups of people, people with disabilities, people, that have got mental health issues, that the community is involved in helping and developing strategies to help them develop their own strategies. So it's been a little bit difficult, but we are progressing.
Now, last week, Dave, I had a good interview with representatives of the Barrow Ladies Rugby League team, Rebecca Thompson and Steve Hartle, who's one of the coaches down there. And I was really, really impressed with the sort of enthusiasm and the passion that both of them portrayed. And I know that in the last year or two, they've done very, very well, considering they've sort of started from nothing. And one of their aspirations, they were telling me, was sort of Super League within 2 or 3 years. And in order to do that, they've got to have a tie-up to a professional rugby club. And my little brain was thinking, well, is there a possibility through the community channel or something similar that Barrow Raiders can get sort of closer to the ladies rugby league team and perhaps put a game on before a proper the proper men's game on a Sunday afternoon, have a curtain raiser where the ladies are playing. I know they've played there once, but what do you think of that sort of thing in the future?
Well, I think it's something to be applauded. I know Steve Hartley. I've known him since he was playing. Good lad. He'll do a good job down there. He also did the stats for a little while at Craven Park for the Raiders. I think it's good for the town and it's good for the game, but they don't seem to have a very high profile at the moment in the town. There used to be a Raiders, a Barrow Ladies rugby league team about 15 years ago, something like that. Well, the problem with it was that once the nucleus of the team retired, and some of the team did do very well, individually. They got Great Britain honours and they toured to Australia with Great Britain and things like that. But once those players retired, there wasn't any other players coming through to take their places. And I think that is something that's very important for the ladies team. Now, I watch, amateur, and I had grandsons playing and at under 8s and under 10s. And there are some very good young girl players, but for the ladies team to progress, they have to develop some sort of pathway that these girls that are playing up until now, I don't know when they have to stop playing. When James and Andrew and Joseph were playing, the girls had to stop at 12. They couldn't play junior rugby with the boys once they were 12. Now, I don't know what the rule is now, whether it's been extended or whether it's the same. But the problem then was there didn't seem to be a pathway from playing, let's say, at Dalton under 12s with boys to then go into some other structure, which was girls only, where they could progress. There didn't seem to be anything. And I think that's something that Steve and his management team need to look at. But if they can get into Super League, then great. But I would think that the board of Barrow Raiders would want some sort of assurance that it's not a flash in the pan, that, once this team, succeeds, gets into Super League, plays for a season, and then people start retiring, that it doesn't fall apart. And I think that's the big problem. I think if it had a tie-in somehow to Cumbria wide, then that would make it even stronger. And, if you get a tie-up with Whitehaven and Workington to a Cumbria team based at Barrow, something like that. It's just me thinking off the top of my head. But that would give them a greater pool of players. That's always been the problem, whether it's male players or female players, is, there are more sheep in Cumbria than there are people.
Well, talking to Rebecca and Steve, there's about 4 or 5 Whitehaven girls who come down to Barrow and actually play for the Barrow ladies team. And there's 1 or 2 rugby union players as well who play at Kendal and Windermere. So in a way, this Barrow team does attract the best ladies talent from Cumbria, and that's why they've been quite successful.
Well, I think that's good. But as I say, it hasn't got to be a flash in the pan. It's got to be something that the people in, the ladies in Whitehaven and Kendal, Rugby Union, Workington, wherever, that they know about it and that they can get games. But there seems to be, in this area, it seems to be difficult to get it going and to sustain it. And hopefully Steve and Rebecca, I'm fairly certain that they will have this in mind and they'll have some plans to develop the game. I mean, it seems to go well in places like Castleford and Leeds, but there are much bigger populations around, certainly around Leeds, maybe not so much around Castleford, but Castleford is in you've got, Featherstone and teams like that around Castleford that they can pick players up from. So I think it'll take some planning, but from what you've said, Tony, it sounds like they're already looking beyond Barrow, looking to the outlying districts. Is there anybody from Millham there?
Well, they didn't mention that, but I'm sure there's another hotbed of rugby league, and I'm sure there's talent there as well. So I just think it'd be a fantastic thing, wouldn't it, for the town if we could have a ladies representation in Super League, and Barrow Raiders in the Championship and all that good stuff, and Barrow football in the Football League. That to me is the town beginning to rise up, so to speak. Yeah, well, in this time of COVID, it would be great, and it would be great to see the Barrow Raiders ladies playing a curtain raiser before Barrow play, whoever, Toulouse or something in the Championship,
they were playing a curtain raiser. And I mean, where do they play at the moment? Do you know?
Yeah, they play at Bow Island's ground. Yeah, on Rating Lane.
It'd be great for them to play at Craven Park, and I mean, I'd certainly go and watch. I'm fairly certain. When the previous Barrow ladies played, I think they played at Roos, because I went and watched them at Roos. It was an entertaining game. It was a game played with a bit of biff and bash as well, but quite skillful.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've watched a few rugby league games. The standard is very good and improving. And I even watch England Rugby Union, Dave. And
I do as well.
They're pretty good as well, aren't they? They play France a lot, and they're very tight games, but there's no messing about.
No, and it seems to be less forward orientated. Certainly the women's rugby union that I've seen, there's more emphasis in getting the ball out into the backs than there is kicking and just bashing it forward like the England 15, men's 15.
So getting into Barrow Raiders men's, Dave, there was an announcement by the Rugby Football League that the season's going to be suspended until May now because of the COVID situation. The story keeps going on, doesn't it? But Barrow are only one of 3 League One teams who have committed to playing in the Challenge Cup. So there's going to be 13 championship clubs, which is everybody minus Toulouse, is my understanding. And then there's going to be Keighley, Barrow and West Wales. So there's going to be a first round of 16 teams, and that's going to be played on March the 21st. Now, why do you think there's only 3 teams that have said that they'll take part?
Well, I think it's, and it's without any evidence, but I would think it's probably to do with the furlough scheme, and it's to do with monetary issues, that they can't afford to bring the players off furlough into playing in a paid competition. Now, if they were playing friendlies, players don't get paid for friendlies. But if they're playing in the cup or any cup competitions, any competitive competitions, then they do have to be paid. So I'm guessing that there's an issue around that. Now, Barrow, we know, have to the credit of the current board, have really worked hard and done a lot during COVID to keep the club afloat and to improve the club's finances, and have furloughed all their employees, but topped the wages up as well. So everybody's had their full wages whilst they've been furloughed at Barrow. But I don't think some of the other clubs have been able to do that. Certainly clubs that don't have the facilities that Barrow have at Craven Park. It might be an old ground, but it's still a facility that they can use as and when they want to. So I think that's probably the reason. I think also, I mean, I know Cresto will be chomping at the bit to try out his new squad. You know, I think we've significantly improved the squad from last year. We've retained most of the players that we wanted to retain. I think probably all the players we wanted to retain. And we've recruited quite well with Sean Lunt and the Wallen brothers. We've retained Johnson and Carter and Dallimore. So I think Cresto will be chomping at the bit to get them out there and have a look at how they gel, how they play together.
You know, of course, there's Ryan Shaw and Ben Harrison as well.
Sorry, Ryan Shaw and Ben, as well. Yeah, I mean, on paper, we've got quite a formidable team, you know, and we've got a team that on paper is more than able to challenge for promotion into the championship and compete in the championship.
Well, obviously, with 13 championship clubs and only 3 League One teams in that first round of the Challenge Cup, it's highly likely, or the odds are pretty good that we're going to draw a championship club. And wouldn't it be nice to get Whitehaven at Craven Park? But if you could get a crowd in as well, you know.
Well, yeah, it would. I mean, I think, well, it would. It'd be absolutely tremendous. It's always great when Whitehaven or Workington come down and players there. They always bring a load of people. It's a good atmosphere, and it's usually a great game. But we've just got to keep our fingers crossed. I mean, the only thing you can say to supporters is that the Rugby League have said that the games will be streamed.
Yes.
So you will be able to watch it. I mean, I'm hoping to be able to sneak in somewhere. Or maybe stand at the Tesco end and watch through the gate.
Yeah, well, you do the gate there, don't you, Dave?
Yeah, but whether there'll be any need for that or not, I don't know. But, I mean, fingers crossed. There's something on the TV today. I watched Question Time, Prime Minister's Questions, but there are two other briefings that I've taped that are on. Boris Johnson was giving some feedback on maybe a pathway out of where we are at the moment. So there might be some information, and sport was going to be included in that. Oh, right. So there might be the possibility that we could have some crowds in Craven Park by the time that's on. Socially distanced, of course, but Craven Park's big enough. Sometimes I've been in there, you could have brought your bed and not been close to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, laid in bed and watched it.
Well, the only thing, of course, Dave, is that March the 21st, which is when the Challenge Cup first round is planned for, if you do lose that game, you haven't got another game until May. That's frustrating, isn't it? Well, unless
they get some friendlies. But Steve Neal and the board know more than we do. They must be happy with going forward, that they can, because again, I don't know what the furlough rules are, whether you can take them off furlough for the Challenge Cup and then put them back on furlough. I don't know, but they must be confident that if they can't put them back on furlough, that they can pay them what they're entitled to until they start playing.
So, Dave, we'll just switch to the other sport world, which is football. Now, obviously...
Soccer.
Barrow AFC, their game against Grimsby Town was postponed on Tuesday evening because of a waterlogged pitch. Barrow, they've got that new manager now, Michael Jolly, but he's not messing about. He's signed half a dozen players in the first fortnight of his tenure. So the Barrow board need to be congratulated, I think, because they're absolutely showing clear evidence that their ambition, their vision is to stay in the Football League. I mean, how important is that?
Oh, I think it's very important. I think it's important for Barrow AFC to stay in the Football League, because I think people who are maybe like me, not particularly keen soccer aficionados, supporters. I mean, I was thinking before the lockdown that, if Barrow AFC were playing somebody like Bolton or a team that I would recognise as being, a bona fide soccer team, I might go and watch a couple of games just to support them. But I'm not interested in watching Barrow versus, I don't know, Kendal Town or something like that.
They're three leagues below Barrow.
Well, I don't. But you know what I mean. That sort of. I want them to watch teams that I watched as a kid when I was watching Preston North End or Blackburn Rovers, when we moved to Blackburn. But I can't understand why didn't the previous manager bring these players in, or did he not realise that the players he'd got weren't good enough? But this guy seems to have shaken them up somewhat. And as you say, I think the board are to be congratulated on backing him. I noticed some of them they've not actually bought; they're on loan. But again, that's the name of the game. But I have taken a lot more interest in Barrow since they've gone back into the Football League.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything, Dave. When you're in recruitment, there's a high level of risk that, players are different and they've got different motivations, etc. And I think it was clear to see, based on results, not opinions, on results, 2 victories in the first 22 competitive games suggested to me that those players that had been recruited just didn't add any value, and they weren't good enough, and that's a simple fact. And David Dunn, the manager, he lost his job because of the results. It's a results-based business. I mean, Chelsea this week, Dave, they spent 50-odd million quid on a couple of players in the close season there. Frank Lampard, who's a Chelsea legend, Roman Abramovich, the chairman. I mean, no messing around. Sorry, not good enough. You're sacked.
Well, is that the same for Jurgen Klopp then? Because from what I've seen, Liverpool aren't doing that well, are they? Well, yeah, I saw in the paper that there had been some talk about was Lampard staying or going. I mean, and they did beat Luton, didn't they? I think it was in the cup. Excuse me. And they sacked him after that. Yeah, I think like the Chelsea board and Roman Abramovich have looked at what he was doing and how he was running the club on the playing side and decided that it wasn't good enough, that he didn't have it with those players, and they needed to bring in, from what I can gather, a far more experienced manager. And that lines up a little bit with Barrow, doesn't it? I mean, Lampard wasn't that experienced. They're bringing in a guy from Paris Saint-Germain, very experienced. Barrow brought in David Dunn, good player in his time at Blackburn Rovers, but not a lot of experience as a manager that I'm aware of. No. Didn't cut the mustard. I think Barrow gave him an extended period of time to prove himself, and he couldn't, and it wasn't happening. The recruitment wasn't good enough, so he had to go, and they brought in this new guy who has got experience. And from what I can see, I think he's made a bit of a difference. It would just be interesting now whether we Barrow can kick on from where they are.
Well, on Saturday, Dave, they're away to Bradford City, one of the big boys. They've struggled early days. They had Stuart McCall as manager at the start of the season, and he got the sack because of the results as well. But they've booked up as well with a new regime, and what they're hosting Barrow on Saturday, that's a big game for Barrow.
Well, I don't know much about it. I was just I knew they were playing Grimsby because I'd looked in the paper, because I had a vague idea that they should have had a game, so I was looking for the result. But yeah, I think the minimum they want is a draw, and to me, it's a mental attitude. Can he improve their mental attitude? Can he put a bit of steel into their minds that we're going to come here and we're not going to get beaten? You're not going to beat us. We're going to get stuck in. I don't know whether they've got that, because I don't know much about the team, but I would be hoping, for the fans' sake, that we see a bit of that we see a bit of determination and grit and fight, for the town. I know a lot of them aren't, well, none of them are from Barrow, are they? But that's the same with any club. It's not to do with, pride in playing for your hometown anymore. It's entirely different. It's a little bit like that in rugby league, isn't it? But not as much so. So I hope they show a bit of steel. It would be great if they could get a win. We don't want to be worrying and talking on here about Barrow, heading for the drop.
No, well, they're at the halfway stage now, Dave. They played 23 games out of 46. So, look, there's 23 matches left. They've got plenty of time to get on that good run and get themselves into a safe position, really. But I think it's important for the town that the football, the rugby, the women's rugby, even women's football, perhaps as well. Perhaps there's an opportunity there to get a women's football team as well. If Barrow can really consolidate in the football league, it's all good for the town, which seems to get such a negative press in the national newspapers.
Yeah, usually from people that haven't been here. But as far as the football goes, I mean, they couldn't ask for a better role model than Georgia Stanway, could they? Barrow lass played for England, playing professionally at a top club. Yeah, bring it on. Let's have a ladies' rugby team. Let's have a ladies' soccer team. And I agree totally with you. I mean, Barrow reminds me a little bit of I went to college in Wales and met a lot of Welsh lads predominantly. The Welsh ladies didn't really like English boys, but a lot of their identity and pride came from their village, lads that came from the Rhondda Valley and the Neath Valley. And they were really pumped up when Gleneath or somewhere was their village team was playing well, and they were supplying players to Neath and Swansea and things like that. And Barrow's a little bit like that. It's a small community, and we get a lot of pride from what our sporting teams do. I come from Barrow, and people say to you, you've got the Raiders there, haven't you? When we won the championship, it does a lot for the town. And the football, you're in the football league. Yeah, I know though. I saw your lads playing, against whoever it was, Bolton or Grimsby. I agree with you. It does the people well, does your mental health well, and it does the town's image well, as you say. As you get all these Southerners, I know we are at the end of the peninsula, but it's a smashing little town, isn't it? I mean, I'm an off-comer, only been in here 30-odd years, but I wouldn't like to move anywhere else. I mean, I am in God's Little Acre and on the Cumbrian Riviera, which is commonly known as Ascombe. But it is. I agree completely, Tony. Yeah. We want to do as well as we can. And so people should be getting out there and supporting Barrow, not travelling down to Wigan and Manchester and watching Manchester United and Wigan Rugby League. Go and watch Barrow AFC and support them. Put your 10, 15, 20 quid in there. And the same at the Raiders. Go and put your 10, 15 quid in there. Watch Wigan on the telly. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more, Dave. Well, look, thanks for your thoughts this week, Dave. I know you're housebound at the moment. You're probably very frustrated like the rest of us, but I hope your foot gets better very soon.
Well, hopefully talk to you next week, Tony.
Yeah, thanks very much, Dave. See you, mate.
Okay. Yeah, and you. Keep safe. Bye.
Bye.